Well, hello Internet, and welcome to my Learn to Program tutorial. In this tutorial series, it's going to be a multi-part series. I'm going to teach you how to program through problem solving. I'm basically going to show you how to do a couple different things using Python. That's the language I'm going to use, and then I'm going to ask you a question, ask you to solve it, and then I'm going to show you how I solved it. A lot of people get confused about programming, but programming basically involves listing all the things that must happen to solve a problem. And whenever you're writing a program, you have to first determine step by step what needs to happen, and then you need to convert those steps into the language being Python in this situation. Based off of many requests I've received, I'm going to use PyCharm in this tutorial series, and at the end of this tutorial series, at the end of this video, I show you how to install PyCharm, and in the description underneath the video, you can just click on that and jump directly to that part and watch how to install it if you'd like to use PyCharm, or you could use whatever different platform you'd like to use to program Python. We're specifically going to use Python 3 in this situation, and also in the description there is both a cheat sheet as well as a transcript of the entire tutorial. And enough talking, let's get into it. Now, this whole tutorial series is going to be basically code writing. It isn't going to be a whole bunch of frames that you just look at and read. So this is basically going to be the only one we're going to look at. And basically what we're going to talk about here is what every program language is going to allow you to do. Each language is going to have the ability to accept input and store it in many ways. Also the ability to output information to the screen or files or other different places. Also the ability to conditionally do one thing or another thing based off of different conditions. They also allow you to do something multiple different times. They also allow you to make mathematical calculations, and they provide the ability to change data. And if it's an object-oriented programming language like Python, it's going to allow you to model real-world objects using code. And that is a short list, but for the most part that covers what every programming language is going to allow you to do, so it's not that complicated. And now we're going to jump over and we're going to start writing some code. Okay, so to start a new project inside of PyCharm, you're just going to come down here, and this is on Macintosh. I'll show you Windows in a second. Click on Create New Project, and then we can go and save this wherever. Location, Untitled, we're going to click on this, and I'm going to find a location. This is perfectly fine. Click on OK. Then you want to make sure that you pick a version 3.5.1, the new version of Python you installed. Click on that. Click on Create. It's going to say it's not empty, It might give you a different piece of information. And then to create a new file, you're going to go File and New. And then you're going to go File. And then we are going to call this Python tut. And the extension for Python files is .py. And click on OK. And there you are for Mac. And for Windows, you're going to do pretty much exactly the same thing. Create new project. You're going to find a location. That's perfectly fine. We're going to say OK. You're going to make sure that you have version 3.5.1 of Python. Click on Create. It's going to say it's not empty. Click on Yes. And then come over here and click on File and New File. And I'm going to call this Python tut as well. You can call it whatever you want, of course. .py. Click on OK. And now you're ready to program. Alright, so here we are inside of PyCharm, and once again in the description, click on that. It's going to jump you to the end of the video, and it'll show you how to install it on Mac or Windows, either one of them. So basically what we're going to do here is we are going to want to ask the user of our program to enter in their name, and then we are going to say hello and follow that up with whatever their name is. Now remember, I said previously that we need to list all the things we want to happen to solve our problem. So what we want to do here is we want to, first off, if you put a hash symbol right there, that's a comment. That means the Python interpreter is going to disregard everything you put there, and it is very good to comment your code. If you want to have a multi-line comment, just put those three little quotes like that, and look at that, now you have a multi-line comment. Okay, pretty cool stuff. So you can remember that for later, pretty easy to remember. But what we want to do here is we want to just start writing out exactly what we want to happen. So we're going to say ask the user to input their name and assign it to a variable named name. And we have to have a place to store things, and variables allow us to say This is a name and it's going to be associated with a certain piece of data. So how do we convert that into Python? Well, we want to create a variable, name, and there it is. And then we want to accept input from the user, so we just type in input. We want to put a message on the screen so the user can see it, and that message is going to be, what is your name? And you don't have to put anything else there, and you can skip down to the next line. So what do we want to do now that we have that all set up? Well, we simply want to print out hello followed by the name they entered. Okay, that's it. It's a pretty simple program. And how do we print things out on the screen? Well, we just call for print because we want to print out on the screen. And then we type in exactly what we want to have here. So we're going to have hello. And we're going to separate all of the different things we're going to print out to the screen. So here is going to be a string, which is just a bunch of characters. And here we're going to say that we want the data that is stored inside of name to also be printed out on the screen. Now I'm going to run this, and you can see right here at the bottom of the screen it says, what is your name? And I am going to type in my name. Look at this, I made a mistake already. I'm supposed to be an expert. Let's go and put a space inside of there, and let's rerun this. So rerun it, what is your name? And I'm going to type in Derek and hit enter, and it's going to say hello Derek, just like that. So pretty simple little program. And we're going to get much more complicated as these go on. And of course, I'm going to start asking you questions, and then I'm going to pause the video. You're going to write the code, and then you are going to then be able to just learn through problem solving. So another thing, just before we move on, is variable names can either start with a letter, any letter you'd like, or underscores. And you can, of course, come in here and separate these. You could say something like the name, like that. And after the first letter inside of here, you can also come in and also use numbers. So that is the ways that you would create variable names, which are just storage cells. And it's also very important that those variable names are not any of these words right here. So you can't use and, del from da 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 da. Not anything you really need to worry about. And as you learn more about Python, you are going to just know that these are commands used in Python and you cannot use them. Who's going to name anything lambda anyway, or a variable named for? These are all pretty weird things, and by no means should you go in and try to memorize that. Okay, so now let's do something a little bit more complicated. Basically, what we're going to do is allow your users to do math on two values that they enter. So what are we going to do? We're going to type out exactly what needs to be done. So we're going to say ask the user, and you should do this for every program. I even do it today with very, very big programs. So we're going to say ask the user to input two values and store them in variables that are going to have the name of num1 and num2. What we're going to then do that's going to be a little bit different is whenever these pieces of data come in, they are all considered just random bits of characters or strings. So what we're going to have to do is figure out a way to convert the strings that the users enter in into regular numbers. And these regular numbers are not going to have decimal places, and in situations in which you have a variable that doesn't have a decimal place, it is known as an integer. Okay, so we received the pieces of data that we want, the two numbers that we want to sum together. So what do we need to do then? We need to add the values entered and store in a variable named sum. Okay, pretty simple stuff. And then what do we need to do? Well, let's go and do a little bit more math. Let's also say that we want to subtract values and store in a variable that is known as difference. And let's do some more. We will multiply the values and store in a variable that is named product. And finally, we will divide the values and store in another variable that is going to be called quotient. And what the heck, let's do another one. And then we also want to use a funky little tool that we have called modulus on the values to find the remainder. And guess what? We are going to call that remainder. And let's do another one. We're going to print the results on the screen for the user, because it wouldn't be useful if it didn't do that. And I guess that's basically it. So now, after we created all of the steps that we need to do, we're going to come in here and fill it in with Python code. So how do we receive two pieces of data inside of Python? Pretty simple. We used input before. So of course we're going to have input is going to be used. And we are going to again type in the message we want. So we're going to say enter two numbers, and then we are going to receive two numbers, and there's a fancy little function inside of Python called split. And what it's going to do is you're going to enter two numbers. Let's say they're 2 and 4. Well, we have to decide how are we going to take these two numbers that they enter in. Well, what split does is it says if there is a space or white space between these numbers, we are going to separate those values that way. And then we're going to have to assign them to variables. And if you want to have two variables, one's called num1 and another one's called num2, you just put the two of them in there just like you did with the one previously, and there you go. Now you're going to be able to receive two pieces of data instead of just one. So pretty cool stuff. We then have to convert our strings so that Python knows that we're working with integers, and that's pretty easy to do. We just say that we want to store inside of the num1 variable an integer version of num1, and then we can go and do exactly the same thing for num2. So there's num2 and there's num2. So it's just converting a string into an integer. That's all it's doing. Now we need to add these values and store them into a variable called sum. Pretty easy to do. We just say num1 plus num2. Pretty much exactly the way that you would think it would work. So we're going to take the value in here, add it to the value in here, and store it inside of this guy right here. Let's go and do the same thing with subtraction. And all we do is change that guy right there. When we want to multiply, we're just going to go and put a star inside of there like that. If we want to divide, we're going to change this to divide. And the modulus, which is going to give us the remainder, we're just going to come in here and we're going to put it like that. But this is sum. We can't use these variable names because it would overwrite the value stored in sum each time. And we already know that we want to store those in variables called difference in this situation, and product in this situation because we wrote all this stuff out, and quotient in this situation right here, and then finally remainder like we have right here. But now we want to print our results, and we want to print them in a format. Let's say that they enter 5 and 4 inside of here. What we want to do is we want to go and print it out on the screen. 5 plus 4 is equal to 9. So how are we going to do that with our print statement? We can't do it in its current format. So what we're going to do instead is we need to format our output onto the screen whenever it's printed. We're going to still use print just like we did before. And what we're going to do at the end of this is, like I said, we need to format our output, and we need to say num1 and num2 and then sum. But how inside of this little string inside of here, remember if it's in quotes, it's a string, we're just building it ourselves. How are we going to say where num1, num2, and sum go to? Well, we just come in here and throw in some curly brackets, and throw in some more curly brackets, and then throw in one more curly bracket. And what this is going to do for us is it's going to take this num1, whatever the value for it is, and throw it right there. Num2 is going to be thrown in right there, and then sum is going to be thrown in right there. So that is how we can format all of our data. We can just come in here and do this a couple times, and then we will just change that to subtraction. We can come up here, make sure that we have our variable names exactly the same. And also, if I didn't mention this previously, difference is completely different from difference. This is case sensitive, so make sure you use exactly the same variable name. And also, we can come up here and get product, bring this down here, change this to multiply, and throw in product right there. And quotient, whenever you're very first starting off with programming, it is a good idea to just come in here and copy and paste, make sure these variable names are exactly the same. That's not a problem. And then remainder for the modulus. And let's change it to this, and remainder. And if we save that and then we run it, we can come down here, enter two numbers, and the two numbers we're going to enter are 5, remember the space, and a 4. Hit enter, and it's going to go and output our data exactly the way that we think that it should. And let's just move this up here so you can see everything all at once. So there you go. That is how we go about receiving all of that information and then providing the proper output. And now, based off of everything you learned right there, I think you are ready to solve your first Python program. So what we want to do here is our problem. Let's go and throw in a comment. Our problem is going to allow the user to enter miles. So we'll say receive miles and convert to kilometers. And then some information that we need to know is that kilometers is going to be equal to miles times 1.60934. And the output, or basically the program, the way we want it to look here, is the message that's going to be printed out on screen is enter miles. They are then going to be able to enter the number 5. And then we are going to output on the screen 5 miles equals, and something like 8.04 something kilometers, whatever that is. So there you go. So, like I said, cheat sheet description, you can refer to that so that you don't have to jump back and forth through the video, or you could rewind the video or whatever you want to do. But basically what I want you to be able to do here is to print out this string, allow them to enter a number, and then output this information. And what you should do right now is pause your screen, go write the code, and then come back and I'll show you the results or my solution for this program. Alright, so here we are back again, and now I'm going to walk step by step through exactly how to solve this. So I'm going to say something like, ask the user to input miles, hopefully you went and typed all this out, and assign it to the miles variable. And what else are we going to need to do here? Well, remember, we need to convert from string to integer. And yes, there's other ways to do that. I'll get into that later on. We then also want to perform calculation by multiplying 1.60934 times miles and save that in a variable called kilometers. And then we want to print results using format. Yes, I use kind of bad English whenever I'm typing out comments sometimes. Sorry about that. Hopefully it doesn't bother you. Alright, so what are we going to do right here? Well, we're going to create a variable called miles, and we want to receive input, and we want to print out a message here that says enter miles, and we'll throw a little space inside of there. Then we want to convert miles into an integer version of the variable called miles. We then need to perform our calculations. So this is going to be kilometers is equal to miles times 1.60934. And then we need to print our results using format. And I showed you what I wanted you to print out before. And we're going to throw in our curly brackets right there. And we're going to say miles equals, and then throw in the kilometers, come outside of that double quote, and then we're going to say format, and then what we want to go inside of there is going to be whatever is stored in the variable called miles and whatever is stored in the variable called kilometers. We are going to save that, and then we are going to run it, and it's going to say enter miles. In our example I typed in 5, and here we can see 5 miles equals 8.0467 kilometers. So there you go. Hopefully you did good with your first example. If you didn't, that is not a problem at all. You're going to have a lot of chances to do all of this right. And like I said, making mistakes is the best way to be able to learn how to program. That's all programming is. So now let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's say we want to create a calculator. So we want to be able to receive two numbers separated by the operator of choice, and then we want to show a result. So for example, I want to output on the screen, enter calculation, and then I want them to be able to enter something like 5 times 6, and then it's going to output the proper information thereafter. I'm going to print out on the screen 5 times 6 is equal to 30. Okay, but we're going to allow them to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division whenever they are providing that information to us. So here we are. Let's comment that out so it doesn't mess anything up. And then we'll walk through exactly what we need to do here. So we want to store the user input of 2 numbers and the operator of choice. And then what do we want to do? Well, we need to convert the strings into integers. Just the numbers, though. We're not going to convert the operator that they're going to be using. Then we're going to use a fancy tool. Remember, I said before, every programming language is going to provide the ability to perform different operations depending upon conditions. So what we need to do here is we need to say if they enter plus, then we need to provide output based on addition. And then we're going to also do exactly the same thing with subtraction, multiplication, and division. We'll just keep that there because we're smart. We don't need to type out all that. So then after we have that, basically depending upon whatever the condition is, we are then going to come in here and we are going to print the result. And then our program is going to end because we don't really need to do anything else. All right, so store the user input of 2 numbers and the operator. Also, feel free to pause the video anytime you would like to, if you want to go and see if you can do it the right way. So what I'm going to say is number 1 and an operator and number 2. And I want to receive the input for this. And I'm going to type out enter calculation. And then I will need to split those guys based off of white space. And then need to convert number 1 into an integer. And to do so, we go and call our int function. Then we're going to do exactly the same thing for number 2. And there's number 2. And there's number 2. Again, we're not doing it for the operator. Well, then that brings us to if and how to perform different operations based off of conditions. So how we use if is pretty easy. We just type in if the operator they entered in is equal to, and remember, it wasn't converted into anything, so it's still a string, so we have to put it between quotes. We're going to say if the value for operator is equal to the plus sign, we'll then put in our little colon, and then we need to put some white space inside of here. That's the way Python works. That's the way that Python knows that everything underneath of here that's indented belongs to this condition. If this condition comes true, this is what's going to be executed. And what specifically is going to be executed is our formatted data. So we're going to go and put our little curly brackets inside of there again, more curly brackets, and then we're going to have another curly bracket. And then we're going to say format, and then this is going to be kind of neat. We can go num1 inside of there and num2 inside of there, but you're probably saying, why didn't you do the calculation for this sum? Well, you can do the calculation directly inside of here. So that's pretty cool stuff. And that's all we want to do because we know the operator, we know the numbers, and we don't want to do anything else. So we want to jump out of that condition and basically exit the program unless the value for operator is not equal to plus. In that situation, we say else if, but the people that designed Python were really cool, funny people, and they decided to just abbreviate that to elif, exactly like that. So now we're going to say operator is equal to, and here we're going to say minus. And we're going to put our little colon inside of there again, and in this situation, we're just going to do a subtraction. We want to tab in there, print this right here, throw in our subtraction right there, throw in our subtraction right here, and there we're ready to go. And now we need to check the rest. So we'll do an else if the other 2 conditions were not true. What are we going to do? Throw that inside of there. We're going to check if this was multiplication. We're going to change that to multiplication. And then we're going to change that to multiplication. And then we have another one. And in this situation, that's going to be subtraction, or that's going to be division. Sorry about that. And we're going to throw in division. And here we will do a division. But what if they didn't enter anything? Well, or they entered something that wasn't one of those things? Well, in that situation, there is a catch-all, and that catch-all is known as else. So in that situation, we're going to come in, and we're going to print a different message that is going to say, use either plus, minus, multiplication, or division next time. And there we are. And that is all that we need to do here. So we're going to save that, and we are going to run it. And they can come in here and go enter calculation. Look at me being silly. I didn't come in here and put a space in there. Enter calculation. Let's save that. Let's run it again. Enter calculation. And we can come in and say 5 plus 4. And it's going to automatically perform that calculation for us. We'll also be able to go 5 times 4. Get exactly the same results, or, well, different results, obviously, because multiplication. Or we could come in and say 5, and then let's think you maybe wanted to use modulus. Well, our program doesn't accept that, and you can see that we get our little error message there in that situation. It's also very important to know there are different ways to perform conditions. As you're going to see as the tutorial continues, you're also going to be able to check if a value is greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. And that is weird, but that is the way you check if two things are not equal to. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do another example, and then you're going to get another program problem that you're going to have to work through. In this example, what we're basically going to do is decide if a birthday is important or not. Yes, I know it's silly, but whatever. What we're going to do is we're going to go and say something like, we'll provide different output based on age. And there's going to be different conditions that we have. If the age is 1 through 18, well, those are very important. So we're going to print out on the screen that they are important. We are then also going to come in here, and in some countries, if you are the age of 21 or 50, or you have an age that is greater than 65, that is also considered important. And so we will act as if they are important. And then finally, all the other poor people, myself included, we're going to say that their birthday is not important. I'm sorry about that, but that's just what I came up with for an example to mainly show you how to use logical operators. And you're going to see more of those here in a second. So basically what we want to do here is I'm going to show you a new way to automatically convert the string that we get from input into an integer. But what we want to do is we want to receive age and store in a variable called age. And then after we do that, we are going to say, we're going to use an if statement again, and we're going to say if age is both greater than or equal to 1 and less than or equal to 18, we want to print the important thing. So important. What else do we want to do here with our if statements? Well, we want to say if age is either 21 or 50, then it's going to be important also. And then we can also, I'm doing this mainly separately just so I can show you something else that's neat. We can say that we want to check if age is less than 65, and then we're going to use a nifty tool to convert true to false. All right, and you're going to see that, and vice versa. That tool you're going to see in a second. And that's it. And of course, these are all going to print the message important, important, and then we're also going to have another thing that's going to say not important for everybody else, and that's going to be our else default. So we want to receive the age and we want to store it. Well, we are going to call age this time. Like I said, if you want to automatically convert the string that they input into an integer, you can use eval. You can do a whole bunch of things with eval, but with this, you just refer to it as evaluate. It's going to allow you to be able to automatically convert strings into integers in this situation. So that's eval, and it's pretty cool, and you're going to see it do even cooler things later on. We're then going to use what are called logical operators, and they allow you to stack the conditional operators like the equals to, not equals to, greater than or equal to, and all those guys. You're going to have and. That is one of what are called the logical operators, and basically if both conditions are true, it returns true. You're also going to have or, and with or, if either condition is true, then you get true as a result. And then finally, you're going to have not. And basically, not is going to convert a true condition into a false. So if you give it false, it's going to return true. If you give it true, it's going to return false. That's what it does. All right, so we received our age here, and now let's get down here and let's start using the logical and conditional operators that I talked about already. So here we're going to convert this. We're going to say if age, we're comparing two conditions here, so throw those little parentheses around there to keep everything neat. If the age is greater than or equal to 1, then we want to use the logical operator, and we want to say if the age is less than or equal to 18. In that situation, you are important. So we're going to tell the whole world that this is an important birthday. Then we're going to come down here and we're going to say elif, because this is going to be a different condition. And we're going to again say age is equal to 21 or age is equal to 50. So that's going to cover either one of those guys. And that's why that's good. And once again, you are deemed an important person or a person that has an important birthday. So we'll throw that in there. Then what we're going to do is the snazzy little thing in which we're going to convert, in this situation, what you would normally do here. Like I said, I'm looking for a reason to do this. Else if, I would normally do age is greater than 65, like that, and then print important birthday. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a less than, and then I'm going to throw not in front of it, and that is going to allow me to get the opposite. And you're going to see not being used for things that are a little bit more interesting and useful than that, but I just wanted to show you what not does. Converts falses into trues, turns trues into falses. Okay? And then finally we get to the end here, and we want to say else, and then we want to make the whole world sad by saying not important birthday. Or let's be a little bit nice and let's just say sorry, not important. Okay? So at least we said sorry. There we go. We saved it. We're going to run it. Come down here to the age area, and we're going to enter something like 12. Important birthday comes back. Let's run it again. Now we're going to type in 20. Oh, sorry, not important. Then we're going to run it again, and we're going to type in 65. Enter important birthday. And we can continue doing this over and over again until infinity. And there you can see exactly how that works, how conditional operators and logical operators work together to allow you to combine conditions. And now it is time for a problem. This problem is going to be basically a person's going to enter their age, and then you are going to determine what grade they should be in. So if we think about this problem, if the age is 5, you are going to print out that the person needs to go to kindergarten. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say ages 6 through 17. In that situation, goes to grades 1 through 12. And you should be able to handle those with one condition, not a whole bunch of them. And then if age is greater than 17, say go to college. And then there's going to be another condition you're going to have to handle, which I'm going to let it to you to figure that one out. And basically, your goal in this situation is to try to complete this program with 10 or less lines. So there you go. Pause the video, refer to your cheat sheet, and see if you can solve this little problem we got here. All right, so we are back again. What are we going to do? We're going to ask for the age, and then we're going to handle, this is the one that I told you you're going to have to find on your own, if age is less than 5. We don't want any toddlers going to school. We are then also special output just for age 5, being the kindergarten thing that we had there before. And here what we're going to do is, since a number is the result for ages 6 through 17, we can check them all with one condition. Okay, you may not have, may have got that one. Doesn't really matter. And then what we're going to do is handle everyone else. So we're going to come in here, and I'm wondering if maybe whenever you were asking for the age, if you used eval, if you remembered eval, no problem if you didn't. Then we're going to come in and we're going to say enter age, and in this situation I'm going to remember to put a space inside of there. Then we come down here and we're going to handle if age is less than 5. So if age is less than 5, we are going to print out a message, and that message is going to be too young for school. And then we need to come down here and do elif, and in this situation we're going to say if age is equal to 5, we're going to print out another message, and this message is going to be go to kindergarten. And then we're going to come down here and go elif, and in this situation we're going to use a conditional as well as a logical operator. We're going to say if age is greater than 5, remember 5 is being taken up with kindergarten, and age is less than or equal to 17. In that situation, we're going to print out, well, what we're going to do first, do a calculation. We're going to say grade is equal to age minus 5. And if you didn't get this, don't worry about it. You're going to get better and better as you will see examples and how they work. So you're going to say go to, throw in a curly bracket, grade, and then after this we are going to call format, throw in the right information, and that's going to be grade like that. And then otherwise we're going to come down here and go else, and we're going to print go to college, and we're going to save it and we're going to run it and enter age. Let's type in 17, go to 12th grade. Well, great, I should have reworded that and said grade 12, whatever. I'm writing these programs out of my head, that's why I didn't think of that. Type in 5, go to kindergarten, run it again, and here we are going to say 2, too young for school, and run it again and type in 65. And there you go. So there you go, guys. That is part 1 of my Learn to Programming series, and these problems are going to get more and more complicated, and you're going to learn more and more as the tutorial continues. And this is technically the end of the tutorial, but what I'm going to do now is show you how to install PyCharm on Windows as well as Mac. And if you don't want to learn about that, you're free to leave the video. Otherwise, I'm going to jump over and show you real quickly how to install PyCharm. Okay, so what we're going to need to do here first off is get Python, and this is for Windows. What we're going to do is we're going to go to python.org, get it, /Windows like that, or if you just go to python.org and click on downloads, it's going to show you this guy right here. And then what you're going to want to do is click right here where it says Python 3.5.1. If it's a bigger number, don't worry about it. This tutorial is no doubt going to work for it. So click on that. You're going to see this page. You're going to want to scroll down your screen, and you're going to come down here where it says Windows x86 executable installer and click on that. After that downloads, down here you're going to get the option to run it. So run it. And then you're going to come down here and make sure that you click on Install Launcher for all users, and definitely add Python 3.5 to path. After you do that, you're going to click on Install Now, and that's going to load up. And then after it's done, setup was successful, and you can close this. And that was easy, wasn't it? Now what we're going to do is we're going to install PyCharm. Make sure that Windows is circled right here, and we're going to use the community version, which is awesome and free, and click on Download. Once again, it's going to say, hey, it's downloaded. Let's click on Run, and this guy's going to open up. We're going to click on Next. We're going to let that be okay, and we're going to click on Next. You're going to make sure that you put a little check mark in here next to the .py. Click on Next. You can leave everything be the same. Click on Install, and it will install for you. And after it's done, you can put a check mark in here, run PyCharm Community Edition, and click on Finish. Right down here, more than likely you're not going to have a previous version of PyCharm, so put a check in there and click on OK. And then PyCharm is going to open up. You can leave everything exactly the way that it is. Click on OK like that. And then you're going to click on Create a New Project. I went and defined my location as Python code, and then you're going to click on this little drop down and make sure you are using Python 3.5, and then you're going to click on Create. Then we're going to go and create a new file, and to do so you're going to click on New and File, and then I call this pythontut.py. Click on OK. And then we're going to verify that we're using Python 3.5, so just type in import sys, and then on the next line print sys.version_info like that. And then you can right click on the screen anywhere and click on Run Python Tut, and there you go. And you're going to see major 3 and minor 5 right like that. And that is going to verify that you're using Python 3.5 and you're ready to go. And that's all you need to do. Everything's set up. And now I'm going to show you how to install Python on a Macintosh. So here you go. You're going to go to python.org/downloads to install for Mac. It's going to say latest version for Mac OS X. And we're going to click on download Python 3.5.1. And don't worry if it's a bigger number, it's more than likely going to work. After it downloads, you're going to come down here, click on this little downward facing arrow, click on open. And there it's going to open up for you. Now it's time to install Python. We're going to click on continue. You're going to click on continue. And you're going to click on continue. And you're going to agree to that, and then you're going to install. Probably going to have to type in your password and install software, and it will take a little bit of time to install. And then it's going to say installation was successful and everything is awesome. And then we're going to close that. Now it's time to get PyCharm. And to get PyCharm, you're going to go to jetbrains.com/PyCharm download. And you're going to click on community download, and it's going to download. You're going to click on this little arrow right here and then click on open. And then really simply you're going to come over here and grab this guy and drag it into the applications folder like you do all the time, and it will be loaded. Now you can go into the applications folder and double click on PyCharm CE, and PyCharm will open. Then you're going to come over here and you're going to click on edit configurations. Click this guy, edit configurations. And then inside of it, you're going to name this Python tut.py, and then make sure that you click on this little guy and you select Python 3.5.1 or whatever the new version is right after that. And then you're going to click on OK and be able to start writing some programs. So there you go, guys. That is a start of my Learn to Program with Python tutorial, as well as how to install PyCharm and set up Python on both Windows as well as on Macintosh. Please, if anything confused you, leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.